dive right into the experts who are joining me on stage. Allow me to give you just a very brief introduction so you can orient yourselves with this amazing panel. First, we have Ken Smith Ramos, partner at Aegon, served as Mexico's chief negotiator for the modernization of NAFTA, which became USMCA. Ken advises international clients on trade, investment, and market access strategies. Thanks for being here, Ken.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you. Thanks to everybody.
Antonio Ortiz Mena, president and CEO of AOM Advisors, is a leading expert in geopolitics, trade, and foreign investment across the Americas. He served in Mexico's embassy in Washington and on Mexico's original NAFTA team. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Both Ken and I were colleagues. Back then, he had black hair, I had hair.
Guillermo Cruz-Rico, chair and president of the Mexico-Canada Alliance of Commerce. You have the longest second sentence of the bios here. Guillermo holds a JD and a master's degree in criminal policy from UNAM, FES Acatlan, a master of law from Osgood Hall Law School at York University, a public safety diploma from INACIPE in Mexico, a sustainability and mining law diploma from the Peter A. Allard School of Law at the University of British Columbia, breathe, and a certificate of qualification issued by the National Committee on Accreditation of the Federation of Law Societies of Canada. What a mouthful. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
We're going to kick off the first question, the same question for all three of you. And it's really the driving question behind this first panel theme. When you think about each of your respective countries' long-term economic vision, what should it make possible for people, for businesses and communities? And where do you think, or where do you see the strongest opportunities for alignment among all of us in North America?
Well, thank you very much. If you allow me to begin, thank you very much for the organizers of this great event, for the invitation to be here to share some views on North America and North American integration. I think when we talk about the opportunities towards the future, part of the goal that we need to envision is, in the case of Mexico, the need for sustainable development, generating economic opportunity for our population, especially taking into consideration that 95%, if not more, of the businesses in Mexico are micro and small size enterprises. So furthering their economic opportunity, ensuring that we have even a regional development in Mexico. That's one of our big challenges. You know, we have very developed areas to the north, to the center, and the biggest challenges in terms of development are in the south of the country. So I think when you talk about the generating this type of economic opportunity going forward, I see three major areas of development. First of all, ensuring the rule of law, ensuring transparency in public policy and the predictability of the rules. Enhance that with further economic integration in North America is what really brings enormous opportunity to our country. You know, over 30 years of free trade within North America, Mexico has changed dramatically. Our economic structure and economic paradigm changed dramatically 30 years ago when we entered into this area of economic trade within Mexico, Canada, and the United States. So furthering economic integration, ensuring that the USMCA prevails and is extended now that we're heading into the review in 2026 is very important to generate that economic opportunity for our population.
Perfect.
Yes, I think that we are living under a new global disorder. I don't call it a global order. Just as NAFTA was negotiated shortly after the end of the Cold War, I think we're seeing the beginning of a new era. That's pretty chaotic. And the USMCA should play a leading role providing stability and certainty for trade and investment in the region. I believe that security and economics have always been intertwined. It's just that it's more explicit now. And the USMCA serves U.S. national security interests as well as those of Canada and Mexico. I think it's important to keep the big picture in mind, a new disorder, and the link between economics and security when we think about the USMCA. In my view, a good outcome of the review would of course be long-term extension, but also low tariffs and above all, high levels of certainty. There are very high levels of uncertainty right now, and Canada and Mexico should have the best access to the US in terms of tariffs, but also certainty. And I think also Canada and Mexico should also keep allowing the US to have privileged access. That's the big picture. In terms of SMEs, and I think they have a very big opportunity, because given both political changes and technological changes, they are supple, they're resilient, they can adopt AI perhaps faster than the huge corporations, and they form the backbone of the North American economy in terms of jobs and employment. And in fact, the USMCA has a number of chapters relevant for SMEs, of course, Chapter 25, which is about SMEs, but also other chapters. And I think it's important to be involved in the review and to speak out and to come out with very specific suggestions. So I think that SMEs will play a key leading economic role, bigger than they have in the past.
Thank you.
I absolutely agree with the two of you, but if in the case of Canada, it happens that 98% of the source of employment are coming from SMEs. So, and also they contribute with 50% of more of the GDP. If you ask me how I foreseen the integration of the region, is that we would be able to focus on SMEs and how we would be able to support them to have access to all the benefits that international treaties would allow. And I'm saying this because at least in Canada, just 12% of the SMEs, they have access or they participate actively in trade internationally. And this is for a reason that I would like to suggest that, not because I'm a lawyer, I would be biased, but I could tell you that we need legal cooperation. And I agree with you that it would be the rule of law, certainly, but also how we would be able to create a common ground among the three partners. Why? Because in Canada, we have exports, but no internationally. We have exports within 10 provinces. So in the way that Canada is regulated, it happens that the trade is a little bit complicated within and also going abroad. So what I would say is that I celebrate this initiative. I think that if we could be able to assist small and medium-sized enterprise in order to be competitive and also to participate, it would be fantastic.
Thank you for opening us up with so many of the, I think, thoughts we're going to build on for the next couple of questions. I'd like to really give you this next question, Ken, and then Antonio, I might ask you to respond if you have any additional thoughts. From your perspective, do you believe US, Canada, and Mexico have a true shared understanding of what regional prosperity looks like, or should we be really rethinking what success looks like or how we should be measuring it?
Yes, I think we really used to have a very strong common idea of what economic prosperity looks like in the region. That's why we created the NAFTA originally, and then now the USMCA. I think the premise or the main sort of guiding light in that common vision was that a unity in North America makes North America stronger. So basically, erasing economic borders between the three countries is essential. It is something that beyond the trade numbers which are outstanding, I mean, we're talking about a trade agreement that's worth $2 trillion for the three countries, almost $1 trillion in trade between Mexico and the United States. But just beyond the trade numbers, we have this integration of production processes in the three countries that are made possible precisely because the three countries face the same types of rules, no tariffs across the border, and basically the ability to exchange products, inputs for production back and forth several times before you have, for example, a finished vehicle. And all of that allows North America to manufacture products that are at competitive prices and that compete successfully not only in our region, but in the rest of the world. So this common vision on the economic front, on the cooperation front, border development, regional development, we have to make sure that we don't lose that in the context of the tough geopolitics that North America is facing. This push throughout the world away from the traditional view of globalization and more towards regionalization. It is a fact that it is happening. And if you look at it closely, North America has a big advantage over other regions of the world because for 30 years, we have been working on trying to have a common view of what North America should look like. So at the end of the day, I believe that this common view of prosperity in the region should be based on having no barriers, no economic barriers between the three North American countries, because a stronger North America equals a more united North America with no tariffs, non-tariff barriers, and other obstacles to economic development. I think that should be the view going forward, and hopefully this can be communicated specifically to the US government during the USMCA review.
Well, before I worked for the Association of Women's Business Centers, I worked for Kia Motors. And that factory in Georgia and all of the supply base from Canada on down all relied on exactly the foundations that you're describing. Let's take, Antonio, your perspective. Would you add anything either maybe different or an addition from a strategic or maybe an investment standpoint?
Well, the U.S. published their national security strategy just a few days ago. And it states that the China relationship will be managed and that the competition is basically economic. So if that's the stand, then the solution has to be with Canada and Mexico. There's no way, I believe, that the US can go alone regarding China. I would add perhaps a component, to be specific, about the production of dual-use goods. There's an international agreement called the Wassenaar Arrangement. The Wassenaar Arrangement allows for the production of dual-use goods. That means goods that can be used for civilian applications or for military applications. And both Canada and Mexico are parties to the Wassenaar Arrangements. So I think that focusing on trade and investment and also producing dual-use goods would reinforce the interdependence of the three countries and make explicit the link between economic and security, and that we are part of the solution for that. For example, it would make sense for the US to have duplicate supply chains, resilient supply chains producing certain critical goods in Mexico, the US, and Canada. So I would really double down, focus on that.
This is so important, the coordination for all of our economic and security benefit. I'd like to sort of turn to autonomy, Guillermo, if I could move to you and ask, how can our three countries here really strike the right balance, like preserving the amount of autonomy that's necessary, and yet getting that balance with this deeper policy coordination, particularly as we've been discussing, global competition's intensifying, and our supply chains are becoming more interdependent?
That's an excellent question. We are living in a region that is unique because this region has two different legal systems. Also, the culture, the richness of the culture that we share is unique as well. So for that reason, if we would like to try to find for a uniform North America is unlikely. I think that we have to be proud about our uniqueness. I mean, like Mexico, Canada, US, and also all the nations that are part of this great region. But we would be able to focus and compromise about which would be the common values that we would like to reach. It was mentioned before, safety and security. And not just against a foreign invader or foreign threat. I would say that now, as Antonio mentioned, it happens that the economic importance of this new era, it would be fundamental. Why? Because it's in the way that we would be able to define how we would like to work each other And most importantly, is a small and medium enterprise. They provide solutions to some of the big troubles or issues that we're facing. So I can tell you, we should keep in mind who we are, but also what we would be able to share with our neighbors and partners.
That's perfect. I just want to offer Ken and Antonio, do you have anything to add on that question?
Yeah, I think it's important, referencing what Antonio was saying about a U.S. view on national security, on the approach to the world in terms of foreign policy. I think the construct, this mechanism that we have built over decades in our region, is precisely the vehicle that will help us, the three North American countries, align not only our economic objectives, but also our overall economic security objectives. And this goes beyond just the issue of competing with China, but of course it's front and center, to the degree that we have a trilateral mechanism that allows us at the highest level, at the levels of heads of state, but also at the level of cabinet ministers, technical negotiators, experts in economics, in education, in technology, to be constantly in communication. That strengthens not only economic security, it actually strengthens coordination on physical security of the region, but also on a key element that sometimes is forgotten, which is food security. You see the situation that other regions of the world are undergoing right now with severe droughts, the impact of climate change on the production of foodstuffs, interruption of key grains trade because of the conflict between Russia and the Ukraine. That is not happening in North America. And we take that for granted, but it is because we have built this free trade environment that allows food products to be grown in all three countries and traded between the three countries, that allows our population to have essentially a guaranteed supply of food. So all of these elements make for North America to be the most geopolitically secure region in the world, and we should not lose sight of that. I think when we talk about aligning economic interests, aligning values, which are cultural, economic, educational, etc., we already have that platform, and we should deepen that.
Perfect. Anything else to add?
Yes, strangely, I agree with Ken. And I believe that there's not enough of an awareness in the U.S. about, number one, what is at stake. As I said, it's the future of the security and prosperity of the whole region. It's not whether I can, get a super deal to export an additional product. I think that there's not enough of an awareness of the relevance of Canada and Mexico for the U.S. national security after 30 years of NAFTA operations. There's still not enough awareness. And secondly, about the opportunities this presents. To complement what Ken said, I teach about trade and investment at Georgetown University, and I explained that the U.S. administration is obsessed, that's the word, with the trade balance and obsessed with exports. You export what you have in excess to import what you don't have. I would say that in a way, exporting is a necessary ill to import. So what does the U.S. import from Canada and from Mexico? A lot of fruits and vegetables, and also critical minerals. We are resource rich in terms of energy, critical minerals. Water is increasingly important for national security. Canada has a lot of water. So I think that there needs to be, again, more awareness of the relevance and more awareness of the opportunities, not to see this as a zero-sum game, to see how we can really change the game here.
Thank you so much for raising this concept about energy. I'd like to move to that topic next. And Ken, I'd like to address this question for you to start with. And of course, anyone can respond after. But across all of our three countries, we're seeing tremendous energy, innovation, a transition in our digital, the modernization of all of that. And what do you think meaningful progress would look like in those spaces? And what does the future hold there for us on collaboration?
Yeah, when you talk about innovation, digitalization, energy, we're talking about how to modernize our economies in North America. So that is the key for attracting investment and developing the sectors of the future. So I think essentially the three North American countries should stop talking about whether in the USMCA review we're going to have a return to managed trade or trade restrictions, and we should concentrate on how to use this instrument to strengthen precisely those three elements. I think Mexico is making inroads, is making progress vis-a-vis what we had in the previous administration, at least on the focus on the need to develop renewable energies. Talking about biofuels, sustainable aviation fuels, talking about solar, wind power, but that requires a lot of investment. So it's a combination of maintaining our international commitments, our rules, that are established in the USMCA, so that foreign investors can be confident about what it is that they're putting their money into, because it is clear, and this has been a message sent by the Mexican government, that to advance in terms of infrastructure investment, energy, digitalization, you need private investment, and to do so you need to have clear rules of the game, okay? So you need on the one hand to comply with your international commitments on trade and investment, but also develop the necessary capabilities at home, and that starts with a clear and predictable regulatory system, right? So I think on energy, there is the possibility of attracting investment in the way we didn't do in the previous administration, from private sources. And also, when it comes to innovation, to development of AI, digitalization, a lot of money has been flowing into Mexico over the last year in the development of data centers, for example. The central states like Querétaro are becoming a very important hub for that. But of course, you have to connect the dots. To develop these digitalization capabilities, you need energy. You need tons of electricity. You need tons of electricity that's generated from renewable sources. So all of that is part of a complex environment where even for our exports in the future, countries across the world are considering seriously establishing carbon border taxes. So when you export a vehicle to the United States, Canada, or Europe, a couple of years from now, forget about tariffs. You may be hit with taxes if the sources of energy through which you produce your goods and exported them was not clean energy. So all of this is part of that complex puzzle that Mexico, Canada, and the United States should work on together. And I think technological exchanges, educational exchanges, and really, in the case of Mexico, learning from the good practices on how the US and Canada are involving SMEs in taking that technological leap from being just tier 3, tier 4 suppliers of major industries to actually becoming leaders in technology. And I think that's what we need in our country.
Perfect. Guillermo?
I believe that I absolutely agree with my colleagues and friends. But also I think that we should talk about certification, or the gap about certification about the three countries. I mean, like from the participation in the workforce is quite complex for somebody who would be required to fulfill a position, a specific place. And I'm not just saying Mexico and US. In Canada, for instance, you have to apply, if you are a medical doctor, for each province in order to be able to practice your career. On the other hand, also we see that it's a short gate about people that would be fulfilling trade positions. And it happens that if we could be able to set up real clear rules about training, certification, and also minimum standards about the people who would be participating in this new era, I think that we would be able to facilitate, under any circumstance, I would say that we would be able to fix the problem. But I would like to invite the panel and everybody else, then the relationship is beyond CUSMA or TEMEC or the free trade agreement. The relationship goes beyond, because there are parts that they are not included that we should bring to the conversation and should be part of the agenda. For instance, Mexico has a FinTech Act that is federally regulated, and I can tell you that at least Canada would be able to learn from that. So I know that sometimes we believe that the US and Canada would be able to bring more to the table, but also we should look at what we are learning from our Mexican counterparts or the contribution that we Mexicans are doing in order to create this relationship in a way that it would be a as I said before, it would be a proper compromise in order to be able to have a common goal.
Perfect. Would you like to add anything, Antonio, on that?
Yes, there's a lot of discussion about import substitution, producing in the region goods that up until now have been imported from China. A lot of them are high-tech, specialized goods, and I believe that SMEs will play a large role in starting to produce in region a lot of goods that are being imported from China, and of course that hits again with my theme, security plus economics. So I think that there's a very big opportunity, and governments should ideally support SMEs being the key actors in import substitution, or at a minimum not get in the way through regulatory or other types of obstacles to unleash the power of SMEs to start producing in region goods that have been imported. And we know which goods those are. So I guess the way forward is fairly clear. We need to know, we know what we need to produce and when and how. And the innovation and the capabilities will come from SMEs, a lot of them by the supply chain of OEMs, but this will come from SMEs.
Well, I want to thank all of you so far for doing such a great job with these responses. You've been queuing up my next questions for me. And Guillermo, you touched on some workforce topics, and I'm not going to be able to ask the workforce question because in the time that remains, I really want to give the opportunity for what I think is maybe the most important question of all, and that is for our audience here, and you know we've got large corporations, SMEs, we've got policymakers, lots of influencers in the room who may be looking for one key actionable takeaway that you could recommend. So if I could keep you all to about a minute or less, maybe you could each share your recommendation on a key takeaway for everyone here.
I would say that it would be three pillars. It would be information, it would be a regulatory compliance, and also clear rules in order to human capital mobility.
I would say is get involved in the USMCA review. If you're suppliers to a large corporation, make sure that the CEO, not industry associations, the CEOs themselves are aware of what's at stake and what the opportunities are, and that they speak directly to the White House. It's good to keep participating in the formal processes, but sometimes they don't get you to the right direction. So be involved, and especially providing specific ideas about what goods can be produced that have until now been imported from China. I would be very specific in those two issues.
Yes, I think my colleagues have summarized it very well. I think North America has an historic opportunity to build the most competitive region in the world. But we have to work with our governments to achieve that end. And that comes from the work that multinational corporations do, but also civil society mobilizing towards a unifying idea, which right now may seem strange to put on the table, but I think that's the level of debate we need to start having with the United States and Canada, which is moving gradually, but with a firm footing towards creating a North American Union. That is the way forward in terms of integrating the region and really creating the basis for competing successfully towards the end of the century.
Well, you all made me look great. We stayed right on time. Thank you so much for being a tremendous panel for us. I guess at this time, I just want to again say thank you, and if maybe we could get a round of applause to thank our panelists. Thank you.